This is what happens when the fourth turning meets fifth generation warfare.
A commentator, international social media sensation, and former Navy intelligence veteran.
This is Human Events with your host, Jack Posobiec.
Christ is
now there's increased political pressure on the Smithsonian museums. The White House now launching a review of museum exhibits to make sure they align with President Trump's view of history and remove content considered to be divisive or partisan.
Decision from the White House could change marijuana laws across the country. Right now, it's classified as a Schedule I drug, the same as heroin. But President Trump considering reclassifying it as a Schedule III drug like steroids and testosterone.
It's a very complicated subject, the subject of marijuana.
The Bureau of Labor Statistics says CPI rose by 0.2% in July at 2.7% annually. The Fed closely monitors this data point as a key inflation gauge when weighing interest rate decisions. So after that report dropped, President Trump took to Truth Social to once again criticize Fed Chair Jerome Powell. He says Powell must now lower the rate and that the economy is, quote, so good.
But the housing sector, people aren't able to get good mortgages. They're paying too much because of Jerome Too Late Powell. He's truly incompetent.
Federal troops now in the nation's capital as the president pushes a crackdown on crime there in Washington, D.C.
Your federalization of the police has a 30-day limit unless Congress acts to extend it. Are you talking to Congress about extending it, or do you believe 30 days is sufficient?
Well, if it's a national emergency, we can do it without Congress. So we're going to need a crime bill that we're going to be putting in, and it's going to pertain initially to D.C. We're going to use it as a very positive example.
We are now just 2 days away from President Trump's very important meeting, potentially historic meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. It's going to happen in Alaska, in Anchorage to be exact, as they prepare to potentially negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine. The fighting between Russian and Ukrainian forces goes on and on and on. And the Ukrainian president, who, by the way, will not be present at the meeting, he's voiced his opposition to President Trump's suggestion that land swaps could be on the table to bring about peace.
Russia face any consequences if Vladimir Putin does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday?
Yes, they will. Yeah.
What will the consequences
There will be consequences.
Sanctions, tariffs?
There will be, I don't have to say, there will be very severe consequences.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events Daily, here live, Washington, D.C. Today is August 13th, 2025, Anno Domini. Ladies and gentlemen, the Anchorage Accords are coming. World peace hangs in the balance. Think of all that is encompassed. Think of all that has occurred to prevent these accords from taking place. A sit-down meeting with President Trump and Vladimir Putin. We're going to examine all of the possibilities for war, and yes, we know those, and there are many, but also perhaps, just perhaps, the possibility of peace. And by the way, peace does not mean alliance. Peace does not mean friendship in times such as this. Peace does not necessarily mean embracing, but what it means is a prevention of war. The United States and Russia are the world's two preeminent nuclear powers. Russia has proven on the battlefield that they are not walking away from Ukraine. Now, Zelensky, of course, will not attend this summit in Anchorage, Alaska. However, the discussions between Ukraine and Russia are currently taking place on the field of battle. And in places like Pokrovsk and others, where you're seeing huge breakouts of the Russian army right now and collapsing Ukrainian front lines. We've discussed here on this very program, and we'll get into it later on the show, about how Ukrainian supply lines are being cut right now going into the Donbass region. Ukraine and their army is facing a manpower problem, and that's a problem that no amount of drones, no amount of money, no amount of weapons being sent over is going to fix. And everyone can see the situation, the precariousness, the political situation deteriorating, corruption charges now being levied from parties all across Ukraine. So, will the United States choose peace? Will Russia choose peace? And there are big questions about this as well, because there are hardliners in the Kremlin. There are hardliners in the Kremlin who say Donetsk, Lugansk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, they're not enough. We want the whole thing. We want the whole enchilada. There are people in the Kremlin who say we need to go all the way up to and including Kiev. Take the whole country, or at least up to the river. These are serious questions. And when it comes to sanctions, perhaps this can be a nugget that President Trump can dangle in front of them. If you're in Russia right now, you can't use a Visa card. You can't have access to a lot of American media, unless you're using a VPN or something like this. Obviously useful. But in terms of travel, in terms of spending money, it's very hard. So, could sanctions relief be something as a way, as a carrot perhaps, to dangle? But then, of course, the fact that it's taking place on Elmendorf Air Force Base. Are we going to see any of those B-2 bombers flying out there, doing a little elephant walk down the runway? Are we going to see some military equipment? No Russian leader has ever set foot in the Alaskan territory, even when it was part of the Russian Empire all those years ago. So Trump, Putin, Alaska. And not only that, who are we going to see with the delegation? Who's going to come from the Russian side? Who's going to come from the U.S. side? What are the points of negotiation? We're going to break it down today on Human Events Daily, right here on Real America's Voice. We'll be right back.